So hello, today we've got an interview with Arttia Creative. I'll be talking with Belinda White, who is the creative director. Belinda, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe give a brief overview of who Arttia Creative are?
Oh yeah, hi Matt. Yeah, nice to be here, and thank you for the opportunity for the interview. Yeah, great. So our clients have one thing in common. They have a desire to make the world a healthier place. So we exist to help them achieve that goal via brand identity, websites, slide decks, all sorts of communications. So Arttia Creative, we're a design agency. And we fully focus on healthcare, life sciences. Yeah, so that's us.
That's interesting. So why did you choose to focus on healthcare and life science companies?
Yeah, it's quite a rewarding sector. Obviously, it has an international focus, and it to make the world a healthier place is a fantastic thing to be a part of. And over the years, we've found that we've got a real skill for making those sort of messages clear, adding clarity. So our agency has been running for just over 15 years, and a good chunk of that has been focusing on life sciences, biotech, healthcare. And we've found that, yeah, we've got a real knack for making the messaging really clear, helping develop brands in that sector, and really understanding either the audiences such as patients or partners, but also the investor side of things as well. So what are investors looking for from healthcare companies, and how can we facilitate those messages and branding? And yeah, we have a real skill in that area. And our whole team is focused on that. So we have a blended team here of creatives, designers, developers, but also those with a scientific background.
I see. So that's a really good overview of what you do. So just taking it right back a little bit, how would you define branding?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So branding is there to, particularly for a startup, is to provide them with some difference, to provide them with a way of presenting their personality, their values, what they're trying to achieve, and set expectations. So it's more than a logo. So it can include things like, the values of the venture. It distinguishes you in the marketplace. So if you're a startup, you need to have a unique identity so that you can stand out. And it can empower you to be really unique and original as well.
And why do you think it's important for healthcare companies to have a good brand?
Yeah, so with healthcare, you're dealing with people's health and well-being. So you need to build up a level of trust, and also encourage people to want to be reassured and understand how you're going to help them, with their healthcare needs. So in the healthcare sector, I think it's particularly important to have a really clear, concise brand identity that builds that trust and also empowers people interested in your innovation to become part of that brand, and understand it, and feel that they can trust in their well-being in your hands.
Yeah, I guess with healthcare, that idea of trust is really important to a startup. So a lot of what you've just said there to me is what I would think of as marketing as well. So how do you distinguish marketing from branding?
Yeah, again, that's a really good question. So there is a lot of crossover, definitely. So for us, branding really is more about what your company believes in, why it exists, very much the why of your healthcare venture, and how the consumers or the investors or your partners are going to feel about you. To me, that's the brand identity, all those values. Whereas the marketing side of things, really, it's more about the strategy of how you deliver those messages. So the marketing aspect it is a strategy to deliver brand awareness, promote those messages, promote the company's products or services. It's promoting the brand. So yeah, they do go hand in hand, but they've both got very different roles. Yeah.
I see. And you mentioned earlier about a brand being more than just a logo, more than just a website. How do you sort of embody what a company, what a startup is, what their brand is, going further than just a website and a logo?
Again, that's a really interesting question. Yeah, because unless you're immersed in kind of the design industry that we're in, then people do think immediately that the brand is the logo, but really that's just one aspect of a brand identity. So the logo mark, or that kind of visual element, it's just an element within that. So the brand identity needs to include all the things around that. So the messaging, the tone of voice, your personality, your values, imagery, and not just tone of voice, but the tone of the visual communications. So the brand can be part of that. The logo can be part of that. So that includes things like, yes, the typography, the colors, but also tonal kind of value of that visual communications, and also imagery, photography, and all that copywriting. Yeah, so all that needs to go into the full brand identity, whereas the logo is an element of that. So so I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so the logo and stuff comes within the bigger brand's umbrella.
Yeah, so it's just part of the identity. Yeah, and it's an important part, absolutely, and it will help build that recognition, but it needs to sit alongside all of those other aspects that I mentioned. Yeah.
See. And you talked about the identity of a company there. Often with startups, their identity, their brand is synonymous with that of their founder. You think Elon Musk, Tesla, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, etc. How important do you think it is for a founder to develop their personal brand alongside their startup's brand? And are they different?
Yeah, they can be very different. Yeah, I mean, and that's a really interesting question as well. So it can depend how that startup's been founded. So it could be an individual, but very often we find it's a group of people. So the startup is made up of, yes, scientists, but also research innovators, or people that can see a gap in the market. So there's very often not an individual founder who wants to head up that. So we're there to represent the whole venture's values. But if there is a founder that really wants to lead that organization and lead the promotional side of things, we would definitely support that. Yeah, but I think that's part of the whole package, though.
Yeah.
And and their personality can lead the venture. But all those people that you've mentioned there, all those innovators, they do have a strong brand behind them as well to support them. You'll know that brand identity without thinking of that person. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's interesting. I think I've got a good idea of what branding is now and why it's important. But when you think of a startup, when you think of founders, in the early days, it's often running around putting out fires as desperately as you can. So why should a founder spend time developing their brand from day zero when time and money are so scarce?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's a really good question. A founder can very often be pulled in all different directions and have different focuses at different times of that business journey. But we would encourage the time spent on the brand identity early on for that founder, because it will give them a framework on which to kind of move forward. And very often it needn't take up a lot of their time. We can work with them quite quickly to understand the values of the company, what their uniqueness is, what their why is, and then we can develop the brand in conjunction with what they're looking for without them having too many touch points with us. But equally we want them as evolved as possible, but we know how busy they are. But I think in that process of working with them to develop their brand identity, it really helps them to clarify their messages, their why, and put that into words or into a visual framework, so that then they can feel confident that they've got a clear message and a clear brand. And because they're so busy, they'll have a team around them, whether that's a small team or a large team. And if they're all part of that brand identity and understand who they're trying to speak to, what their difference is, the clarity of that message, then the whole team have got something cohesive to take forward. And, they're all on the same page. And they can all kind of talk in the same way when they're all kind of meeting in different environments, or they're producing materials to speak to investors or partners. There's a cohesive message that's going through there. So it is worth a founder spending time doing that, but it doesn't have to take up a lot of their time.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense if they are forced to, or not forced, but if they're
encouraged to, because take everything out of their mind,
exactly.
Their aspirations, the reason why they've created this venture, and really put it into a piece of visual communication that really will give them something tangible to move forward with.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. So you've said there that it doesn't have to take much time. Why would you say that it's beneficial for a startup to go to a sort of professional branding agency rather than try and develop that brand themselves?
Yeah, so as you'd mentioned before, founders they have to wear many hats and do many different things. And when you're developing a brand identity, it does take a certain skill set. And to create one quickly and concisely takes a certain amount of experience. And a founder, although they've got many skill sets, they might not have that area of expertise that is needed to put a really good brand identity together. And really the founders should be hopefully getting a brand that's going to take them forward many years without having to change that brand or evolve it too much as they move forward. So the skills like, creative design, illustration, but also copywriting of messages, really getting that concise information put together so that within seconds somebody really understands the brand. Using a specialist agency is going to provide a wide range of skill sets from the team, and also perhaps give a fresh perspective, a fresh eye on their messaging, or what they're doing, and those creative ideas that come from that. It might produce something they haven't thought of. So taking things in a different direction can be quite interesting that the founder might not have considered. Because sometimes you can be a bit too close to something, and having that fresh view on it and a fresh team of people looking at that messaging can create something really unique.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So how would you try and tease out from a founder, from a team, what their brand is? How would that come about during discussions?
Yeah, so are you thinking there of what process we would take?
Yeah, so if you're talking to a team, what questions do you ask? How do you sort of probe them to sort of develop their brand? And I imagine they have this sort of vague idea in their head, and you talked about making it a more tangible thing they can sort of rally around. So how do you get the thoughts from their head and make it into a more tangible brand they can relate to?
Yeah, so because we've been doing this for many years, we do have quite a clear process for that, and we want to make it as a great experience for founders, because it's exciting to build a brand. It's really interesting to make sure that they've got that visual identity and that messaging to take them forward. So yeah, we've got a process that we would go through that we would tailor for every organization, but it would consist of discovery workshop, speaking to all the stakeholders, perhaps some market research around the area of healthcare that they're looking to commercialize in. We might look at competitors or indirect competitors and see, do some research there to make sure that they've got really strong difference and a really strong founder story that we can take forward. So yeah, a lot of discovery and research, and then from that, those conversations and the research that we do, we then work to put together a strategy to take that forward. And then once that strategy is agreed, then we can create the deliverables, which are the things that you would use on a day-to-day basis to promote that brand.
Sounds like a really interesting process to be involved.
It's exciting. Yeah, we love it.
Absolutely. So you mentioned copywriting a few minutes ago. How should a founder think about copywriting? Or what is it, maybe, for those who don't know?
Yeah. So copywriting, originally it came from printed materials before the internet. So a copywriter could potentially be working on a range of different pieces. So it could be as simple as a headline for a piece of advertising, which it can take quite a long time to refine a really strong, catchy headline, to a piece of content that's more of a long form article for a magazine. So that there's different types of copywriting doing different things. So yeah, in the internet age, the online space, again, there's different roles that a copywriter needs to do. And that includes things like developing the messaging for the company, and making sure that tone of voice is consistent, providing a tone of voice guideline document. They would do that as well. And also going forward, different types of copy for that particular company. So it could be that they need landing page copy for a website, which is a certain skill set, or it could be that there's a white paper that would need some copywriting to bring out the kind of non-scientific information alongside clearly presenting the scientific information. But also our copywriters, they have experience of writing for the web. So that includes writing for people that are just going to scan information, through to long form articles on the web, but also copywriting for keywords, SEO, and then copywriting for what I call conversions. So making sure that when somebody is reading an article, they know what to do next. Yeah.
Okay.
So do you think that covers that? Does that cover copywriting as you see it? Yeah.
Yeah. From what I understood as that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So I sort of understand now why having a good brand is so useful for a startup. So now I'm just going to focus on what benefits may arise from a startup having a good brand. For example, what role does good branding have in the role of sort of raising capital and getting investment for a startup?
Yeah, so raising capital and getting that investor interest it can be challenging. Yeah, and we've seen how challenging that could be. And really, the more things you can have that give you the power to kind of meet that challenge, the better. And brand identity can certainly go towards encouraging investor interest and raising that capital. So a solid brand identity will help you as a founder, create the presentations that you need. So the investor may have to present information on, the particular innovation that they're doing, so the very scientific aspect, but they might also need to create content or a presentation around the business numbers. What's the market opportunity? How is the investor going to see a return on that? What size is the market that they're going into? What partnerships do they need to build going forward? The investor is going to be interested in all of that information, and the founder needs to put that together in a really clear and concise way. So having a strong brand identity, which includes messaging, copywriting, the values, tone of voice, with all that wrapping around that information, it's going to make it a lot easier for the founder to communicate that value to a potential investor. It's just going to make it easier for them to present, you know, a company that you know, looks like they're professional, they know what they're doing. It just gives that reassurance to an investor that they're serious about their business. You know, if they've considered brand to be important, then the investor, I think, would really relate to that, because it's going to make them feel like that they're going to gain some traction a lot faster if there's a solid brand that in the marketplace can really gain some traction.
Yeah, I guess it's like a solid foundation from which the company grows. And I guess
absolutely,
also, yeah, building on that as well, you talked earlier about having a good brand can sort of rally the team. Again, a lot of investors focus and look at the team and see who's in it and what sort of cohesiveness is there. And I guess that can really be built up by having a good brand to begin with. Also, having a strong online presence can also play a big role in attracting the right talent into a startup. Have you got a couple of examples of where you've seen that happen? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, as a startup grows and kind of moves forward, they need, you know, a fantastic team around them. So whether that's on the science side, or whether it's on the product development side. So yeah, they need to attract the best talent from around the world. And what we found is that you know, candidates and people working in the healthcare sector, you know, they're interested in working in really innovative and forward-thinking companies. You know, being part of something early on, being able to help develop and kind of mold that business, you know, as part of their job is incredibly rewarding, over and above remuneration and kind of what holidays they get. You know, they want to be part of something really exciting and something that's going to make a difference in the world. And if you're trying to attract that sort of talent that's really passionate about moving the business forward, so it's more than just a job, then yeah, presenting a really solid brand, you know, having a stunning website that makes the company you know, fit with those values that candidate's looking for, that looks a company that looks innovative, exciting, that's doing some groundbreaking things, then, you know, a candidate that's potentially got access to an international market, you know, if you really stand out to them, then they're going to be interested in being part of that journey and part of that company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess at a startup where there are fewer people, having a good brand that is attractive to any new recruits is especially important. Just some of the things we've talked about so far, sort of branding, it's kind of hard to quantify what a success would be. So how would you quantify successful branding?
Yeah, so are you talking about quantifying the brand in terms of the impact it's having on the business?
Yeah, so
that sort of thing.
Yeah, if you work with a company and you've said, okay, these guys have got a great brand, they're doing well, these other group of people haven't got a great brand, what are you basing that on?
Yeah, so having a solid brand identity, it can be hard to quantify, and it does take time. So there's various ways that we can measure kind of brand impact and that marketing strategy impact. I mean, previously in traditional advertising, that was quite hard. It's hard to track, other than if you were doing, you know, customer surveys, etc., to measure the brand awareness. So I think with the digital age and being able to kind of track and measure things with some real data gives us the opportunity to measure that brand impact. And measuring the brand impact, it can mean different things to different people. So does it equate to, has it been successful in raising awareness? Another measure could be, has the brand been successful in driving sales? Has the brand been successful in creating that investor interest? So those are different data points to measure. And because of the online space, it is easier for us to measure those data points. But I think with a brand identity, you're probably looking at, months and years to measure success rather than, days or those smaller touch points.
Yeah.
So I think the brand success, you should be looking at what's that long-term success look like, and what do you want to measure that against? Yeah.
That's interesting. You talk about sort of long-term success there over months and years. Do you ever see a company change their brand as they get bigger?
It can do, yes. So I think with startup companies in the healthcare space, they do need to evolve as they get feedback from the commercial side of things, as they evolve the type of audiences, the type of people they're trying to reach with their innovation. So it could be that the brand does need to evolve, and we have worked on projects where it's been a rebranding exercise. We've taken a company with no brand identity, created an identity based on where they are at that current moment in time. So where they are in their journey, what their vision is for the future. But because we're very lucky to work with companies over many years. We've got clients that we've worked with for over 10 years. And during that life of the company, their strategy can evolve, and they might discover, new markets that they weren't aware of. New opportunities arrive, and that does mean that they then might have to slightly reposition the brand. So, I mean, if you look at, very well-known brands, even like Apple, their original brand is very different to where they are now, but it does have some history and heritage there that you can follow that journey. So we definitely work with companies where over time their brand will evolve, and it will be refined and enhanced, and incorporate the new things that I might discover about the marketplace that they're in, and bring that to it. And it could be that the corporate brand remains the same, but their products or their services might end up then having, a sub-brand or, a product brand that sits within a brand family that is supported by the corporate brand. So things can evolve, definitely.
It's more sort of like fine tweaks instead of reassessing the foundations of what.
I mean, very often it's not a full change. It's definitely something that evolves over time, and that's the best way forward, really, is to evolve the brand, because that's why it's important to spend some time on it at the start, because you build up some brand recognition. Some people will start to get familiar with that look and feel of the brand, whether it's the logo or the tone of voice or the messaging, and really you don't want to lose that brand equity going forward. You want to build on it. So the ideal is to evolve the brand, so it's got a natural journey that it's been on, that you can bring your customers with you on that journey.
That's good, because it kind of go full circle there, starting at why we should start right now, branding right now, and then how that evolves over time. But just going back to the present a little bit, just to finish off, if a founder is watching this now and they're wanting to build up an online presence, what advice would you give to them?
So I would definitely say that it should be critical for their strategy going forward. They are going to be pulled in different directions and have different priorities. But working on a brand identity, that whole process is going to deliver so much value going forward, because it'll give them some clarity. So we do think it's a priority. within the framework of what they're working on. So we would say, yes, you need to get that focus early on, and it will really help you, drive those business decisions going forward. Once you've got a clear identity and a set of values that's they're in front of everybody. It's not just a thought in your head or an aspiration. It's been defined, and the whole company is on board with that, and you've got a really clear direction. Then, yeah, I would say it would be a priority early on, and the sooner they can get started on that, the sooner they'll gain some real momentum that we can track and measure, and have a story that investors are really going to get excited about.
Yeah, cool, brilliant. Well, that makes a lot of sense and very useful for people I'm watching, I'm sure. Belinda, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure.